Hello everybody, sorry about that. I just had to restart the stream. So, I hope all you beautiful people had a good Monday and things are going well for you. I just figured we'd take a couple minutes and just break down what happened with the two elections we had over the last week, the French election and the British election, because I think both of them are going to be very influential on the coming couple of years. These are two extremely important countries. I think even if on the surface a lot of things didn't change, beneath the surface, I do think this does mean something, particularly in the UK context going forward. So I was going to do this as a video, but I just kept not being able to really record it properly, so I just wanted to do it like this. We'll do it live, as in the words of the late, the great Bill O'Reilly. So, just to start off with, something that I've noticed about this is that I was right about basically everything. Um, I didn't really get to make a prediction video just because I was out of province and I wasn't by my computer. But no, it seems like everything I thought was pretty much directly what was going to happen. And I saw a lot of people who were, God bless them, very optimistic. They're like, "Oh, Farage is going to form government. The UK is going to reform. UK is going to become the main party. The Tories are going to get 0% of the vote." All this stuff just was like out there. All these memes, that kind of thing. But they were all basically wrong. And they were also a lot of people. I remember seeing people even on like the Duran and stuff saying that, oh, the RN is going to win the French parliamentary elections. They're going to form the majority. It's a revolution in France and just all this other stuff. But they were 100% wrong. And why was this? Why did everybody or a lot of people get this thing wrong? It's because whenever people talk about these things, they never consider the electoral system. I find people operate under the presumption that every country on earth uses proportional representation. So, when you have an election like this, where Labour only wins a third of the votes, assuming that this is under proportional representation, you'd think that they would get 30% of the seats. That is not the case. That's not how it works. In some countries, that's how it works. So when it comes to electoral systems, and if people want, maybe I'll do a video uh, on the if people want, I'll do a video on electoral systems and why specific ones are done. So, a lot of systems that rely on plurality have been put in place to prevent minor parties from gaining any kind of power. The idea is to try to force parties to be these big, tent, grand coalitions that represent a very broad swath of society, and any party that has a position outside of the accepted mainstream basically is just barred from any and all political participation, is how this thing is set up. Now, the UK operates under single member plurality, which is what the United States and Canada operate under. Although the United States operates a little differently by virtue of it being a two-party system in practice. So, how this works, and let's go down and maybe see if I can find a example of this. Just trying to see there's some examples of some seats. Is there like a breakdown by writing? Just trying to find this. Let's see. List of targeted seats. Okay, it says target seats. I just need to get to somewhere. Okay. So, in a single member plurality, you only have to win the most votes. You don't need to win a majority of the votes. You just need to win the most. So that can be any number. If there's 10 parties running and you get 11% and the rest of them get less than 11%, then you win. That is kind of how it works. I'm just seeing if there's some other really close ones we can maybe take a look at. No. Why are these target seats? They aren't even vaguely close. I'm trying to find some examples of seats where the vote was just really heavily split. That would probably be the case in Eastern. Let me see if there's some in Eastern England. So I think in Eastern England, it was especially the case where there was vote splitting. Okay, so yeah, so here's a good example of what I'm talking about. So this is a perfect example. So Amber Valley, if you look at the actual vote, Labor only got 37% of the vote in this riding. Um, this looks to me like this was probably a safe conservative riding. The Conservatives got 64% of the vote last time, but because the vote split between the Conservatives and Reform UK, it meant that Labour managed to get a plurality of the vote, and so they take this seat with only 37%. The other thing to keep in mind is it's not really helpful to get more than a plurality. So what will happen sometimes, like there's only so many seats you can get per area. So it doesn't like it's a bit like the electoral college. It doesn't matter if the Republicans win Wyoming by 1% or by 30%. They get the same number of electoral votes. So the popular vote doesn't really matter. So once again, it doesn't matter if Labor wins a seat by 1% or by 10%. And what will often happen is in these systems, there will be parts of the country wherein they just massively run up the clock. Like here's a good example right here, Boston and Skegness. So the Conservatives got 77% of the vote here. Now that inflates their national vote total, but even if they got 100% of this, is they wouldn't have gotten additional seats. So hopefully people kind of get where I'm going with this. So the point is that in single member plurality systems, the actual percentage of the popular vote is not irrelevant, but it's much less important than being able to turn out your base in specific areas, and to be able to win a certain number of flip seats. So, like, let me see here, Canada. So, if we look at the last Canadian election, the Conservatives actually got a larger percentage of the popular vote than the Liberals, but got fewer. That's because Conservative support is more dispersed across the country. Um, well, more just, or not, maybe not dispersed, but it's more concentrated. So, like, they will run up huge margins in Alberta, but they can't win more than every seat in Alberta. So if they get like 90% of the vote in one riding in Alberta, it doesn't matter. If they get 90% of the vote there, the Liberals have their base in the most populated parts of the country, fairly centralized: Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver, and the major urban areas. So they can win the most. They can just win the most seats there. So there's that aspect to it. So I think that's important to just keep in mind. And I think a lot of people were just looking at the votage percentages and thought that that was going to be a direct reflection of what's going to happen. The problem with parties like Reform UK is they don't have a specific part of the country that's their base, because they're okay. So politics has a parochial component as well as an ideological one. People will just vote a certain way because their parents voted that way, or they see the party as representing their part of the country. Saskatchewan and Alberta will just vote for the Conservatives federally, even if the policies they're putting forward aren't of benefit, because that is just the way that they vote there. Um, and the Conservatives and Labor have that. There is a certain threshold that it's very hard for them to go down below of people who are traditional conservative or traditional labor voters who will always vote that way, and that tends to be concentrated enough that they can win some seats. Reform UK is spread out all across the United Kingdom. So they could, like, they might even be able to get, I don't know what the most extreme one that I've seen is. Just give me a second. Elections. I think the most lopsided result of all time was in a Saskatchewan election. Let me just go back and look for it, because I think this was it maybe 1982? I'm just trying to find it, because there was one that was completely insane that I think happened in Saskatchewan. Was that it? No. I think there was an election where one party won like all of the seats despite losing the or almost all the seats. I'm just trying to find it. Let's see. Maybe it was Manitoba. 95. I'm just seeing here. I just remember there was one that had like an absolutely insane result. Okay, maybe I'm just not remembering properly. I thought it was in one of the western provinces, but I might just be mistaken. Let me just go back a little further on Saskatchewan and see if it's like during the 70s or something. No. Okay, I must just not be remembering properly. So, anyways, so that's kind of just the reality of the situation there. Is that it doesn't particularly matter what percentage of the popular vote you get. So, what I think is going to happen in the next election in the UK is we're going to have. I think Labour. Okay, here's my schizo prediction. I think Labour will collapse in the next election because they really have nothing to run on, and they just kind of won by default. My understanding, the narrative I've heard of this election is Sunak called this election knowing that he was going to lose to prevent the third parties from getting anywhere. So Reform UK was picking up steam. Maybe Galloway's party was picking up steam. Maybe some other minor parties were picking up steam. And Sunak decided to call it when he did to prevent them from getting any more steam and possibly changing the electoral system. The elite thought a Labour supermajority was a better result than even if it meant that the Conservatives would get completely blown out and lose like half of their vote share. But I kind of feel like the Conservative government was somehow in power, I think, for like 14 years or something. Like, it was some really long period of time. It just felt like it was life support. It just felt like the Conservative government, like from David Cameron on, just felt like a dead man hooked up to like, or a nearly dead man hooked up to life support, just like hulking, lurching down a like endless corridor on the verge of his heart giving out at any given time. It was just a complete and total disaster. Nothing got done. Nothing happened. It was just a complete and total shit show. I can't even really think of anything. What did the Conservatives bring in? Gay marriage, more immigration, Project Ukraine, um, higher debt. They oversaw more of the breakdown in law and order in British society. But I feel like Labor won just by virtue of there not being anyone else. So I would not be surprised if what would wind up happening is Labor just implodes next election. I don't know if the Conservatives make a comeback. I don't know if a third party makes a comeback. But I don't really think that this is necessarily the establishment reassuming control. I think it's them kicking the can down the road for another election, is what I think it is at the moment. And we're going to have either much lower turnout next time, or some new party's going to emerge, or I don't know. But I kind of feel like it's basically on life support um, at the moment. So I don't know. People in the chat want to respond to that one way or another. I'm not sure. That's just tends to be what I go. I don't think Labor is going to be able to repeat this next time. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I could see if there's going to be like a collapse in the party system. I think it might happen next time. Or maybe one of them will get replaced with some other party. Okay, so that was the British election. Now, with regards to the French election, once again, I saw people, and I'm going to call them out, that Duran was guilty of this, claiming that the RN was going to get it, or the NR was going to get a majority somehow. I don't know, like, why or how they thought that was physically possible, but but they aren't. Like, I was expecting them to come. I actually thought they might come in second place, but I was not surprised at all that they came in third place in the election, because the electoral system in France was specifically set up to prevent the National Front from taking power. I mean, that's literally why it's there. Let me look it up if I can find it. The French electoral system is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Okay, so let me see if I can find it. It's so confusing. Okay. So a candidate is required to secure an absolute majority of votes cast, and also to secure votes equal to 25% of eligible voters in their constituency. So I guess if, like, the voter turnout gets too low, just nobody can win. I think maybe that's to try to force it to a runoff, because maybe if voter turnout is below 50% or something, and someone gets 50% of the vote, I don't know. It just seems like it's to force that. So when they go to a second round, only first round candidates with the support of at least 15% of eligible voters are allowed to participate. But if only one candidate meets the standard, the two candidates with the highest number of votes in the first round may continue to the second round. So there is a possibility that you might have somebody who gets 40% of the vote, or like 49% of the vote, and then it's divided up between like 10 different parties, and then they go on. Basically, the idea is them trying to force every single vote to come down to a runoff election. And the purpose of this, and what wound up happening, is the RN gets the largest share of the popular vote. They got 33% of the vote in the first round and 37% in the second round. So they were able to win a couple of seats out right off the bat. But what winds up happening is all other parties have basically come to an agreement that the RN cannot win an election regardless of what happens. So they will pull their candidates out, and demand a. They'll pull their candidates out and tell them to endorse someone else. So you will have like the Communist Party or the Trotskyist Party will pull out their candidate and tell their voters to vote for Macron's guy. Is basically what happened. Um, Now, I've heard different things that the electoral system was implemented to stop Jean-Marie Le Pen, and I've heard that it was implemented to stop the communists. I think we can just say that it was implemented to stop non-mainstream parties from getting uh, any kind of any sway within the government. So I'm trying to see if it says withdrawals. So as you can see, the vote was a lot more split this time, or the number of candidates was far more split this time than it was previously. These are constituencies that had more than two candidates in the runoff. And I think the reason for this was because the United Front pooled all the left-wing votes together. Macron pooled all the neoliberal votes together. Keep in mind, there is still, like, the Republicans, whose only purpose, I think, at this point is just to be a spoiler for the RN and preventing them from doing better at elections. As well. So basically, in every case where there was, in all of these cases, the third candidate would withdraw and endorse the candidate that was not the RN in order to consolidate the vote. Now, this did not happen in every single case, but in the vast majority of cases, like I said, the Macron voters would rather vote for communists, for Trotskyists, for anarchists, than allow the National Rally Party to gain any kind of power. So that was basically what wound up happening, and it's almost impossible under the current electoral system for the National Front, or I still call them the National Front because that was their name for like 40 years, to gain power, regardless of the situation, as it were. So let's see here. So the scenario we now have is a complete and total disaster. So the current composition is... I'm just seeing if I can find a decent picture of the composition. Where is it? Why doesn't it say what the composition is? Okay. Anyway, so there's approximately 580 seats in the French National Assembly. You need 589 for a majority. The highest party got 180. So the New Popular Front got 180 seats. Macron's party got 160, and the RN got 140, and then the Republicans got another 40. So one of the issues right off the bat is these three parties are very close in terms of the proportion of the vote they got. Like, the Popular Front did better than the other two parties, but not by very much, and only in terms of seats. They don't have enough to form a government. Macron's party did really bad, but they're still the second largest. The RN got by far the largest vote share, but they don't have enough seats to form a government. So, because of this, the only way for there to be a stable government is two of these parties have to enter into a coalition. Now, let's just look at this off the bat. So, Macron and the New Popular Front have said, under no conditions, circumstances will we enter into a coalition with the National Rally. Mélenchon has also said, under no circumstances will we enter into a coalition with Macron's party. So therefore, it is impossible for anyone to form a majority government. Even if I think all the random other parties, like the Republicans or whoever, were to throw in with someone, it just can't. So what's probably going to happen is there's probably going to be a minority government, and the minority government is going to be um, no, there's not going to be a new Popular Front National Rally Coalition. They've said that that's not going to happen. Even if they are ideologically more similar on most issues, it doesn't matter. Um, the left and the neoliberals are so committed to mass immigration and globalism that they will under no circumstances compromise on those issues. We cannot reduce immigration basically no matter what. Now, as someone pointed out, is there anything about the National Rally's policies that are not like basic? Like, are any of them really distinct from anything Charles de Gaulle believed in? I think that's an interesting question. Like, is anything Marine Le Pen advocates, including immigration, different from what Charles de Gaulle thought? I don't really think so. But the other thing is they can't call another election because there has to be at least 1 year between them. And so this is what we're heading into. A government where no one is able to form anything. Form a government. Now, the new Popular Front is itself an extremely unstable chimera of a party. Like, let's look at the people who make up the new Popular Front. Okay, so we have France Unbowed, which is Mélenchon's. We have I'm trying to see, because there's some, like, ecological revolution for living, global federalism, veganism, deep ecology. We have the eco-socialist. Let's look at some of these. Ensemble. We have some other left-wing parties. I mean left-wing eco-socialists. Where is Communist Party? Yeah, we have the French Communist Party. Now, the French Communist Party is somewhat more moderate than other communist parties and was more electorally successful. Just trying to see what else we have here. Is there a Trotskyist? Yeah, there is a Trotskyist party. Okay. I think there's probably multiple Trotskyist parties. We have... What else do we have here? We have Antifa. We have the Pirate Party, the new Anti-Capitalist Party. Actually, that flag looks kind of based. I'm not gonna lie. That's a cool looking flag. Is this... Where is this? Martinique. What the fuck is that? It's just this random amalgamation of randos, most of whom hate each other. Like for instance, the Socialist Party is extremely pro-EU, anti-Russia, and pro-Project Ukraine, whereas Mélenchon is more pro-Russia and is against Project Ukraine. So, how are they going to go into a coalition together? It might fall apart, and then generations, global federalism. That's a new meme. What's this? Public place, public square. Build the Martinique country. I don't know. It's just this fucking random amalgamation. There's a Basque Nationalist Party? What? I didn't even know Basque nationalism was a thing in France. So it's just this random amalgamation. So as I'm looking at this, okay, so here's what I think could happen. Maybe the new Popular Front will fall apart, and the moderate members of it will enter into a coalition with Macron's party. I think that actually might be the most likely. So maybe like the Socialist Party and the Socialist Party and its allies will split off and they'll join with Macron. I just don't know if that's going to be enough for them to take power. Um, that might be the goal. Uh, so let me think. So what coalition could they make? Maybe if you had Macron, the Republicans, and the more moderate wing of the New Popular Front, they could scrape together a majority. That's going to be my guess, that if there's going to be a majority, that's what the majority will wind up being. I don't really know, honestly, what else it could be at this point in time. Um, let me see. Let me see if it has a breakdown within the coalitions. Uh, New Popular Front. I'm just trying to see if it says how the seats are divided up between them. While we're at it, though, let's just take a quick look at how this worked out. So, political party affiliation, satisfaction with Macron. So people who don't like Macron voted National Rally. Let's see. Actually, that's surprising what percentage of women voted for National Rally. I would have expected it to be a lot lower. Um, so what saved Macron in the end is like the boomer vote. Like the boomers came out big time to vote for Macron, and that saved his party. So this is So this is kind of interesting too. So we have white collar and blue collar workers. So people who work for a living are more likely to vote RN. Um, People, yeah, basic, but also unemployed people. The problem is under this, it's kind of hard to tell because they're by far the biggest party. So, um, interesting. They did better among non-practicing Catholics than among practicing Catholics. Maybe just more of those people voted for the Republicans. Oh, okay, I see. Okay, yeah, I see. Looking at this, the okay, an unusually large percentage of the religious people voted for the Republicans. Okay, that makes sense because they're kind of a Christian Democratic Party, um, or they pretend to be one. So that's probably what's going to happen, or they'll purge Mélenchon and then he'll be replaced. So I'm trying to. Does it say? I'm trying to see if there's a breakdown somewhere of New Popular Front, like how much the various factions within it wound up getting. Oh, here is it. Oh, okay. Here we go. It's right here. Okay, so Socialist Party got 31 seats. Green got 23. And Communists got... So let me just do some math here. Okay, so 31 plus... 159 plus 39. No, that's still not enough. That's still not going to be enough votes. I don't know. Is it? Let me see. Is it possible for them to form a government without Mélenchon or uh, the RN? Okay, so let's see. So they need 280. or no, 577 minus 76 minus 89. So that would leave 420. Wait, what am I doing? Okay, then. So Zamor got none. I'm having just like a brain fart here. I'm just trying to think of. Okay, so you need 289 seats for a majority. So, okay, so if we take the 580 total, or 577 total, minus the National Front's 89, minus Melanchon's 76. Okay, so it's still possible to get a majority government without those two. But I think literally everybody else would have to participate in it. Wait, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't add up. Oh no, that's seats before the election. Oh, okay. Well, I was misreading that. Okay. Okay, that makes sense now. That would explain why I was getting confused there. But yeah. So that's where we are at the moment. Maybe I'll take another look once we get the actual results of like how it broke down within the parties, but we'll have to see sooner or later. So I hope people found that interesting. God bless everybody, and more exciting quality content